Hello, in today's tutorial I'll be showing you how to rig custom models for Guitar Hero World Tour. Uh, Anything basically like an XNA mesh mod or a model from a different game. And yeah, that that's pretty much what I'm gonna show you today. Now for this you're gonna need the following. You're obviously gonna need Blender. You can get it from their website or on Steam, whichever you prefer. You need GH tools, a Blender plugin which handles Guitar Hero, Tony Hawk, and DJ Hero model formats, and it's the one we're gonna use to export the models today. We're gonna also need the Guitar Hero SDK set up and ready to go, and we're gonna need the Guitar Hero World Tour Definitive Edition installed because it makes custom characters easier to install. Now, in case you guys don't have any of this or some of this, I will link everything down in the description, even the model that I used, and I'll link down tutorials for the stuff that I've mentioned if I made or others made. So now you have, now open up your template blend file, and then you're gonna import the model that you're gonna use. Now in this video, I'm gonna be using Jill Valentine from Resident Evil HD. Gonna be using an XNA Lara rig because I don't have the game installed. So yeah, without any further ado, let's do it. So I'm gonna import the model into the scene, and then I'm gonna scale it down, but I have the scaling in Notepad. Then gonna move the model a bit to the front, like this. And Jill seems to be leaning a bit to the right, so I'm just gonna move her a bit to the left. A little bit. Alright, now that's done. Now, since we're gonna be rigging this model from scratch, we need to get rid of the original armature and weights. So in this case, I'm gonna, after resizing and moving, I'm just gonna select the meshes, then the armature with control. Then I'm gonna press Alt P. Then I'm gonna clear the parenting and keep the transformation. Then I'm gonna go over every mesh and remove the weights and the armature mesh and make sure they have a color, vertex color. If it's COL like this, it won't work. And the vertex color is required so when the meshes are imported into the game, they don't have broken lighting. So I'm just gonna go ahead and set up everything in here. Shouldn't take long. Now that I'm done cleaning up the meshes, the next thing I want to do is that some meshes like the eyeballs and the hair and stuff, I do some steps for them before I transfer weights from the original model, which is the quickest way to get your model in the game, really. Depends. So basically, for example, take the eyeballs and I give them vertex groups, which I weight them to. So for example, I'm going to give them 3 vertex groups. Um, the first one is going to be Bonehead. This next one is going to be Bone IL. The other one's Bone IR. So I'm going to weight both of them to the head. And then in here, I'm going to weight the right eyeball to Bone IR. And the other one to Bone IL. And that's pretty much it. I've rigged the eyeballs. And now for the hair, basically I'm gonna do the same thing, but I'm just gonna give it only the head vertex group, just Bonehead. And I'm gonna do the same thing with the other hair mesh, which I think it's done for reflection. I'm gonna inspect it later when I'm dealing with materials. Now, for the eyelashes, I do the same thing as the eyeballs, except in here, I'm gonna give it eyelid vertex group. Now, you don't really have to do what I'm doing here, but I just do it so things don't get caught up when I'm transferring weights. Now that that is done, I could just double check on anything else. Oh yeah, the mouth. I'm just gonna hide Jill's face for a second there. And I am gonna split the inner mouth mesh from the entire mesh in general. And then I'm gonna be left with the teeth and the tongue. Now in here, I'm gonna need 3 vertex groups. Bone head, bone jaw, and bone tongue. Now for the lower row of the teeth, I'm just gonna give everything the head vertex group first, and then I'm gonna give the lower row of the teeth the jaw vertex group, and then the upper one to the head, which is basically what I've done. The first end of the tongue to the jaw, and I'm gonna give the rest of the tongue to the tongue vertex group, so when it moves, it only moves this and not this too. That's done for this. Now I'm gonna go into the inner mouth mesh, what I like to call it that, and then I'm gonna give it 2 vertex groups, bone head and bone jaw. Give everything to the head, and then for the jaw, I select the lower end of the meshes and give it parent and weight it to the jaw. So when your character moves their mouth, they don't look buggy on the inside, and then they're gonna be questioning what went wrong. Alright, so this looks perfect. Give it the jaw, vertex group, and then I'm pretty much done for the stuff that I like to do previously before I start on anything else. You could do this if you want to. I mean, it's kind of something I'm just used to doing, really. And now I'm just gonna show the original rocker model. Then I'm gonna do some bone trickery. Basically, I'm just gonna rotate the bones around in pose mode. Rotate the bicep by 45 degrees if your character is in a T pose, like Jill right now. Then I'm just gonna do the ankle and the knee. I guess that could work. Don't really need to worry about the original model anyway. As for the fingers, I need to move the bicep by, I think, 0.4. Yeah. One important thing that you should know is that Guitar Hero World Tour has a limit on meshes. The maximum amount of vertices in faces is 21,845. And if your model has more than that, um, you need to use the decimate modifier on the meshes. so it doesn't. So it's gonna lose a bit of detail, but it's gonna make your model at least compatible to be in the game. Now in here, you just really need to move the fingers around. That's pretty much about it. It doesn't matter how your original model, the rocker model, looks like. So we're done with these. Just need to tackle onto the head bones. Yeah, keep them like this. I don't care. And to handle bones quicker, make sure you have x-axis mirror enabled in pose mode or edit mode. Depends on how you're gonna model do the bones. So when you're rotating, for example, a right side of a bone, the left side also moves, and you probably have seen that, or probably not. You get an idea of how it works now. And now that the rotation and location stuff with the bones is done, now I'm just gonna select the rocker model, then Jill's meshes, and then I'm gonna go into weight paint and then transfer weights to each mesh individually. Now I'm gonna set the ray radius to 5 meters and the vertex map into nadir's face interpolated, and then source layer selected to be by name. Now this works best. These settings work best with the models, but you can always find your own suitable settings and you could get something working with it. Now I'm just gonna keep on transferring weights to Jill's meshes, and after that I'm gonna delete the original rocker model. Then I'm gonna parent the skeleton to Jill. Then we can start cleaning up weights in case something broke. Now, if you've done what I've done before with the visual meshes, like the eyeballs and the inner mouth, don't transfer weights over again to them from the rocker model. Doing so will add more weights on other vertex groups and could potentially break stuff for you. Alright, now that I'm done, I'm gonna go ahead and delete the rocker model. Go back to the player armature and pose mode, select all, and then apply pose rest pose. Then I'm gonna select all of Jill's meshes and select the armature, and then I parent it with armature form. I usually do with empty groups, but it doesn't really matter. Now I can go ahead and save in case things go downhill or whatever. I hope not. Now I'm gonna rename it REHD, RE3 Jill, or anything you really want to do with your model. Now, both the male and female templates have animation tests which you can use to see how your model looks like. Now, I'm gonna look for anything that could be broken. And there we are. Basically, what happens in this case that the index finger it gets weighted to the middle one. So when the index moves, you see this atrocity. And it's not the only thing that happens with the index, it could happen with the other fingers as well. Fixing it isn't that hard at all. You just need to find the vertex group of it. As you can see, it's a bit broken, so you just add to those verts however you like, and boom, it's fixed. Now, if you don't want to go to the other vertex group and wait until you change and stuff, you could just open the sidebar like I have and just remove the vertex group so things look back normal in vertex selection. And I'm just gonna select all of those individually. I'm just gonna remove the middle finger vertex groups from it. Now we fixed the index finger. Then we're gonna look again for the middle one. Works fine. Pinky finger has the same issue. I'm gonna do the same thing in here. And to the other hand, there's the other set of fingers as well. Those fingers are now fixed. Now I need to go to the other fingers and see what's up. Probably suffers from the same case. I wouldn't be too surprised. Yep. Remove all of the middle vertex groups. I could just do this. Wait, what happened? Alright, I could just do this and go to the now if you see those if you catch that, the two vertices are being influenced by the ring finger. So I just need to delete the ring finger's vertex groups from there. Boom. The fingers are fixed. Now I can go onto the or maybe not. Which finger does this belong to? Oh right, the index base one. Alright, now that this is done, we can go over to the part that takes most of the time in the tutorial, which is basically the head. Now, if you see this, don't panic. This is normal, because transferring weights, this doesn't work best most of the time. Now this is, I want to say it's easy to fix, but it, it definitely takes a lot of time, I'll just say that. Now, what I like to do sometimes is just that I just select all of the head and just I delete all of the lip weights because I like to do them from scratch. This definitely takes more time, but it's worth it. And while I'm at it, I just go into the head and wait the entire head to it, because sometimes it just doesn't work out and doesn't do it. I mean, I need to just deselect the neck, and then I just assign it there. And for the neck, I just invert the selection. I just take a bunch of things out of the selection like this, so I only have the neck. That's a good selection. I'll just assign it to the neck, and then I'm just gonna save, since things are gonna take more time to do now. Oh, and the upper mid is there, I don't know why. Now I'm just gonna select, and I just do that, it's a habit. Now I'm just gonna go back to the animation frames, and I'm just gonna go back to X-ray mode, and then I'm gonna start doing some rigging. So I'm guessing that's the facial rig done. Well, for the vast majority, because the lips are usually the most important part about it. Then, I mean, it's not perfect, but this is a tutorial anyway, and I'll probably polish it before release, if I decide to. And Yeah. Now, as for the what you've seen here, mm, for the eyes colliding with the brows, I'm looking for that real quick. I just want to take off a portion of the eyes from the the brow weights, or brow, or however you spell it, really. Now, as for the weight painting, there are multiple ways you can get it done, but this is the way. This is the way that I'm really used to. So, in case I did something weird in a weird fashion, then yeah, that's the way I'm used to doing mods with, really. Now do the same thing with the other mid weight. I guess that's okay. Now Jill can look angry without looking weird at the same time, I guess. Still looks weird. Plus there's some issues with the upper eyelids and the lower ones. But I'm not really gonna bother into fixing them now. I'm just gonna fix them later. So basically, I hope you did get the idea of of how you basically rig and stuff. And basically for now I'm just gonna set up the textures so I can just export it. Now let's start with the head, for example. Just go into material properties. I'll look at what texture that. Oh my god. So basically, um, if you want to notice some of the, if you want to notice the changes that GH Tools does with materials in the viewport, basically you need to switch to principled BSDF, which is gonna change some things. But then I'm gonna go into here and add 3 materials. Now, if you're gonna use more than one material, then switch to complex template. Now, in this case, I'm just gonna use the face textures. I'm gonna use the same name too. This is the normal map. Set it as a normal. And this is where the specular belongs. Now, usually specular maps sometimes are just don't work right off the bat. So in this case, I'm just gonna set them all to 0. As for the unknown floats and other stuff, just don't worry about them unless you're doing some extensive work, which I'm not gonna cover now because I'm doing some simple stuff for now. So you're just gonna have to repeat this for every other texture. Now for the hair, you, you basically use alpha cutoff and double-sided, and you need to keep blend mode as is normal. You don't really need to use blend because in the game it bugs out. Not sure if this is a tools issue or that's how the game deals with them. But for now, just for hair textures and stuff with transparencies, you basically make it have alpha cutoff and double-sided, and then you change the compression to DXT5. DXT5 is for transparent textures and DXT1 for opaque textures. Alright, now the materials are set up, and now we just need to do is just normalize all weights and then join every mesh in one, unless you want to do multiple skins and exports, which for a tiny model like this I don't really recommend you do that. So basically I made a save now. I'm gonna join every mesh to each other now like this, and then I'm gonna open up edit mode, and then I'm gonna merge vertices by distance. Just a tip, it sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, but clearly this time it didn't, so I'm just gonna keep it as is. Then now what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna go into weight painting and normalize all and untick lock active. If you're on a current vertex group with the weights and then you do normalize all, it won't normalize it unless you untick it. Then just go back into the animation test. Things are fine. It's ready for export now. When you're exporting, make sure you're on a still frame that doesn't have any changes to the mesh, because if you export, for example, on frame 20 or something where she looks like this, she'll look in the game like this. So for example, export on frame 0, which is basically what you should really do. Now change the name to like Jill or something. I mean, it doesn't really matter because it's gonna get transformed into a checksum. The name and the texture is pretty much. And then now I'm gonna apply all transforms so it doesn't look weird in game. And for the player armature, here's the next step you want to do. Basically what you want to do now is select all of the lower lip bones like this, and then you select the head and then Control P, make parent, and then keep offset. This is if you're using the old templates, which are probably being sent to the Discord, which are in the Discord server, because those are actually old ones and having correct parenting. So if your character looks like Lady D in my video where I showed her off and she has that broken jaw, that's why. Basically, now that I'm done, I'm just gonna need to set up a custom characters folder. So I'm gonna, for example, copy Claire Redfield's folder. I'm gonna rename it Evil HD or something, and then Jill Valentine RE3. Then in here I'm gonna do some changes. Then I delete the original assets that Claire used. I'm gonna open the ini file. Then I'm gonna just change around the names and stuff. Oh, whoops. Then you basically just change around stuff so it looks accurate and stuff. Basically, everything in mod info won't be in the game, but everything in character info will be used by the game. I'm just gonna name the description to tutorial test, then basically I've done everything here, so don't really need to worry. As for the photo, which you see me rename, which doesn't exist here, we'll go over that later. Now you need to copy the skeleton name that you've done, basically, and then you need to export the skeleton 2 times. Now in here, I'm gonna go over to folder, then I'm gonna go export the skeleton once, and then this time I'm gonna export it again, but then tick export drummer. Guitar Hero uses 2 skeletons for characters, starting from World Tour to Warriors of Rock. It uses normal skeleton and drummer skeleton. Basically, the drummer skeleton lacks the mic bones and basically is only for drumming, and while the normal rocker bone is for guitar, bass, and vocals, and pretty much anything on the menu and stuff. Now that we've got the skeleton exported, now we can export Jill. I'm gonna export her with the same name that we gave to the ini file in the mesh entry. Or for example, it's if it would open, okay. Then REHD Jill RE3. This is the name I gave it to her, so basically I'm just gonna do it like this. Now, depending on your mesh, you're gonna have to wait a bit, and Blender might go unresponsive. That's fine. If you've done anything wrong, a menu log would appear and then would tell you if you're missing a material or doing this or that, and you need to do this and stuff, and you'll be warned. Now basically we've done the skeleton and the model. Now what's left is the portrait that you'll see in the main menu and stuff. Now if you're using my new templates, which I still need to improve, basically update because of the skeleton thing, you're gonna go into portrait stuff, and basically the collection I've set up there, and then you're gonna show it. Then basically make a nice little portrait for Jill. Basically move the character up and down, camera up and down as much as you want. You're just posing her. Nothing really complicated about it, just a normal posing thing. And then just gonna, for example, just move them down. Rotation scale, so it doesn't really bug out. And then I'm gonna go to materials individually, and then I'm gonna set up a correct alpha blend to them. Now this is in Blender only, because Guitar Hero handles transparency differently. Now I'm gonna render her portrait. Basically, do anything with the the bones, like give her a smile or a blink or whatever. In this case, I'm just gonna keep it vanilla. Then in output properties, you need to set up the resolution to 256 by 200 by 56. This is balanced, you could say. No need to go with 1080 by 1080 because that's overkill and the game could potentially run out of memory. If you have a lot of them like this, but it's untested at the moment. I'm gonna go into render and then press render image. Now that it's rendered, you can save it. And then I'm gonna call it the same name that I gave to it in the ini file, photo rehd jill, basically. Now that it exported, it's gonna be in the image folder or whatever you put it. If you exported it somewhere else, put it in the assets image folder of the SDK. Now I'm gonna run sdk.bat, and then I'm gonna convert it to an IMG.XEN file, which is the image format for Guitar Hero World Tour. Pretty much every Guitar Hero game, except the harmonics ones. Go to image and then click on Jill's PNG file. And in processed, you'll see that it exported. Now you're gonna move that to the mod folder. And this is how your mod folder looks like. You could put the image then in the assets folder, but I just keep it like this. Now that we're done, now we can just go into mods, World Tour Definitive Edition, and then update user content. If done properly, you will see installing your character, and basically it's gonna say that it updated or whatever. And that's pretty much it. Now that is left is just that you open the game and test it out. Now that everything has been installed and sent to the game, now we could just open it up and see how things look.